let's go. All right, we're continuing learning the speeches that the Rebbe gave in 1992. I guess this is 1991, I guess. Anyway, Tav Shin Nun Base. Tav Shin Nun Base. This speech was given also on Parashat Vayetze, Tet Kislev. Tet Kislev is oh, this is the day that the Rebbe, the second Rebbe of Chabad, was born, and the day when he passed away. When he passed away, what is it, 52 years later? I forget. 50 years later. I passed away. I'll find it. All right, and interestingly enough, the day after that, the date after that, he got out of prison. He got out of prison. Okay. Interestingly enough, he got out of prison, and he passed away like the next year. So he couldn't really celebrate his release from prison because he passed away the day before that. The Nogei Al Admor Emtzai, relating to the second Rebbe of Chabad. The second Rebbe of Chabad was called Rebbe Dvar. He was the son of the first Rebbe of Chabad. He was an amazingly holy person, but his job that he took on himself was to make Hasidut really accessible to everybody, to explain ideas, even though some of these ideas are very deep. So Benagil Admar Emtzai, and regarding to the second Rebbe of Chabad, this is like 200 years ago, right? A little bit more. He is the one who was born and passed away on this day, Tet Kislev. By the way, the dates on that year when the Rebbe spoke correspond exactly to the dates this year, namely that Tet Kislev fell on Shabbat. This year also it falls on Shabbat. So we find an interesting thing. That the day that he was born and the day that he passed away are exactly the same day. This is the same thing was true with Moses. And there's another thing. That immediately the day after he was born, the date that he was born, and also the date that he passed away, and Yud Kislev, that's the day when he was released from prison. He was released from prison. Okay, he was in the now this of course was all in Tsarist Russia, right? So the first Rebbe of Chabad, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, he was slandered by his enemies who were religious Jews. He was slandered by his enemies because they really opposed the Hasidic ideas that he was spreading around. They thought it was going to destroy Judaism, which in a way was correct according to it was going to destroy their Judaism, because their Judaism that they had was very insular and very non-active. Not active. You learned Torah, that's what you did. You learned Torah and you did the commandments, you kept to yourself. And the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, was saying, no, that's not the idea. Judaism has to conquer the whole world. Namely what? Not that everybody's going to be Jews, but everybody has to believe only in the Creator. God is creating everybody. Everyone in the world has to know about God and what God wants. But in order to do that, we have to know about ourselves. So the enemies of the Hasidic movement were against learning about God himself. They said, you learn about the Torah, you learn about do the commandments, and that's it. You don't get into this spooky stuff and this mystical stuff. Maybe a few people. You can have a couple of people, right? That they understand the secrets of Judaism. Of great people, but not any more than 10, 20, who knows. But the masses are to be just kept they're to be kept in in the realm of action and speech, not too much thought, not too much thinking about God. About so these enemies put the first Rebbe into prison, and he got out, miraculously got out. And the second Rebbe was something like this, even though the immediate causes were a little bit different. It was a family thing, but in any case, he was also put into prison, and he also got out. That was like 18 years later, after the first Rebbe got out, something like that. Okay, so the day he was born and the day he passed away was the 9th day of Kislev, and the day that he was released from prison, that was on the 10th day of Kislev. The date was the 10th day of Kislev. Alpia Yadua, which is known, like I say, he was released from prison like almost a year before he passed away, a little short of a year. According to what's known, that the holidays of the year, there's a connection to the portion of the week that we learn. That these holidays fall in the Torah portion. So we have to learn the Torah portion, and that will tell us everything we have to know about this fact that the second Rebbe of Chabad was released from prison and he was born. Okay, again, I just want to stress another little forward over here. Okay, what do we care? Chabad is just this one movement in the world, and it's a small movement in Judaism. And maybe now it's very big, maybe it's the biggest, who knows? But Judaism itself is very small. Judaism itself, all the Jews, and that's all the Jews. What about the religious Jews? The religious Jews, that's also the religious Jews are not the greater portion of the Jews, right? And Hasidic Jews, and etc. So the answer is, like I said before, Abraham was one person. One person. That one person, he brought godliness to the whole entire world. One person. You have to have one person saying the truth. One person saying the truth is not easily understood, right? To be one person and you're the only person in the world saying the truth, the chances that you're going to say the truth are very, very small because of peer pressure and because who's going to listen to you, and you'll be barred from all the, the media and from all of this. So who's going to listen to one person saying the truth? But nevertheless, that's the way it was. Abraham was one person saying the truth, and eventually somebody was convinced, and that somebody convinced 2 more people, and then 4 more people, and then finally it worked. You have to let God do something, and that's what Abraham did. It's the same thing with Chabad. The Chabad has taken on themselves to finish the work that Abraham started, to make that the world should be ruled only by Hashem. Hashem al Mamlucha. God will be the ruler. God should be the ruler. Namely, everybody should just have a little great gratitude to their creator. God's creating everybody. So it's only one person, but this one person took on himself to change the whole world, to take the whole entire world out of darkness. The whole world is wandering around like just completely verblunget, like it says, in a blind man in the middle of the day. Everybody's just, I know what's right, I know what's right, I know what's right. Of all these philosophies and ideas, and and all of them are wrong, right? They're all wrong, or they have a little piece of the truth. So the idea is, so therefore it's very important, every detail that happens to these people, because these people are the foundation of the whole entire world. So it's moving, so it's understood, that this week's Torah portion, when we're talking about the most important ideas in the world, the Torah, and the most important person in the world, the Rebbe. So when they fit together, it must be that there's some big lesson over here to learn from me and you, for every Jew. Ubafrat, and Parshas Vayetze and Parshas Vayishlach. That's this week and next week. Shematchilim, that we start to read this Vayishlach, next week's Torah portion, we read in the Mincha of this Shabbat. Shechag Geula b'shana zeh chal b'yom Rishon, that this Chag Geula, the Yud Kislev, when the Rebbe got out, this comes to be on the first day of the week, first day of Parshat Yishlach, next week's Torah portion. In any case, we can certainly find messages, kashurim, which are connected to the Bal Yom Holedet, to the one whose birthday will be on Shabbat and the day of his passing away, and the day after that will be the day that he was freed from prison. Kol v'ikra, especially though it seems that limud be'inyan hazman grama, especially now in our generation, the most important message that's really the most timely and important topic, right? More important than the politics and more important than the impending wars and the whatever is the nations are yelling at one another. The most important thing, in fact, the only really important thing, is the Geula Amitit Vashlema, the future, the total redemption of the whole entire world by means of the Moshiach. Kafi Shedubar Pamim Rabos, like we spoke many times lately. She'ata Kavar Siyamu, that we have already finished everything we have to do. This is the Rebbe saying this 30 years ago. But Tzorich Rak, all we need, the Kabel Panei Moshiach, all we have to do is just receive the face of the Moshiach B'Pol Mamish, but we have to be ready. We have to be ready to receive Moshiach. Okay, so how can we learn from the passing away of the second Rebbe of Chabad? It was on the same day that he was born, and the day after that he was released from prison. What do we learn from that about bringing Mashiach? Hachirush Bakach is that on the day of the birth, and the day that he passed away of a tzaddik, when they come on the same day, is brought by the rabbis. Al divrei Moshe, like it says about Moses. Moses said, Me'av esrim shana anochi hayom. He said, I am 120 years today. It says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, Ma Talmud Omer Hayom. What does he mean? I am 120 years old today. It says, today filled my days and my years. The Lamedecha to teach you that God, Yoshev Mamale, that God sits and he fills Shenoteim, the years of the Tzadikim. Yom from day to day, Michodesh to Chodesh, from month to month. Shneimar, like it says, at Mispar Yamecha Amale. Like it says, I will fill the days of your life. Is Mispar Yamecha Amale. It's one of the sentences from the Torah, right? One of the says that you won't be sick. All the sicknesses I'll take away from you, and I'll fill the days of your life. What does it mean, fill the days of your life? That your life will be filled. What does it mean? Perish simply means that by a tzaddik, there is completion. That God fills the days of his life. The number of your days I will fill. That a person will live exactly the number of years that he was allotted. It'll be filled. Miyom Oleretov, from the day that he was born until the day that he passes away, exactly to the day. We have to understand, but what's so great about the Maila Shlemos Bazeh? So a person is born, listen, everybody has to be born sometimes, right? And everybody just dies sometimes. So the chances are, I don't know, you have to do, but I imagine the chances are 365 to 1 that a person will be born on the same day. The statisticians will correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that a person is born on a day, so he's got to die someday. So that the chances are 365 days of the year. The chances are 365 to 1 that you'll be born on the same day that you die. Okay, so that's pretty not such good odds. But if you consider there's 8 billion people in the world, so it has to happen sometime. So it happens, I got to die someday. So you died on that day. So what's the big thing that a tzaddik, excuse me, passes away on the same day that he dies? Passes away on the same day that he was born. I'm sorry. Shlemut avodat tzaddik. The idea of what's a tzaddik? A tzaddik is a person totally devoted to God all the time. His thought, speech, action, his feelings, his emotions, totally devoted to God. He feels God. He feels that God is creating him. He feels God is creating him for a purpose, and he devotes himself to this purpose. And first of all, the main thing of the tzaddik is spiritual. At first glance, it's not connected at all to his physical life. What if at tzaddik? What difference does it make if he lived for 13 years, or if he did his holy work? That's it. He's born on this day, died on that day. How is that important? Can you do it like it says Shechaya tzaddik, that the life of a tzaddik are not physical world life. His whole life is just spirit. What does it mean, spirit? Faith in God, fearing God, and loving God. Everything that he does is only with these things in mind. So it's understood. That by a tzaddik, it can be shlemos havodah, complete service of God, even when his life is not complete. His days don't come out exactly the same. He doesn't die on the same day that he was born. Same date. Like we see, rov tzadikim. Almost all the tzadikim in the world. They didn't die on the same day they were born. They didn't die on the same day they were born. Right? All the prophets, Isaiah and Ezekiel, they died on the same day they were born. And Moses died the same day he was born. Aaron died the same day he was born. I don't know. I don't think so. There's some opinions that say that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they died in the same month they were. We'll see. So what's so special about the same day? Yeshlom, we can say Sheshlemos Avodas Tzaddik. The whole main thing of Avodas Tzaddik is Kasher Shlemos, that his spiritual service is also mishtakefet. It also reflects also in the physical world. Shlemos b'zaman avodasa, the completion of the time of his service, the number of years, the number of days, physical. Like the rabbis say, Yodea Hashem Yemei Tamimim. God knows the complete days of the tzaddik. Kashem Shem Tamimim, just like the tzaddikim are complete, also their days of their life are complete. The other reason is very simple. Since the whole purpose of doing Torah and the commandments of a Jew, that's tzaddikim, they're Jews, right? The whole purpose is mitpateh in this sheyivorer v'zachech gufo gashmi, that he will refine his physical body. And that's why God puts us in the world, not to get out of the world. In such a way that there's no different times in his life, so to speak. There's no times in his life where he doesn't serve God. Every single instant of his life, everything he does, he's always serving God. There's no separation whatsoever. Between his body and his soul and his body, between his spiritual and the physical. But kol pratim, every single detail of his life is permeated with a spiritual soul, until the gashmis, the physical, becomes secondary to, the physical becomes secondary to the spiritual. The physical becomes a vessel for the spiritual. They make their soul the main thing and their body secondary. Now, like a soldier, take an example, a soldier. What is a soldier? A soldier has this idea. He's protecting the country. He doesn't care about himself. Where there's a gunfire, he runs in that direction. Right? Because the spiritual, if you want to call it, at least the idea overpowers the physical. How much more so if your job is to serve the Creator and everything, not just serving your country. Serving your country is not bad. Serving your Creator is much better. So, but what prevents you from serving your country? The same thing that prevents you from what prevents you from serving God? The same thing that prevents you from serving your country. You're afraid, you're lazy, you can't move, you're not able to, right? You can't jump, you can't run, you can't this, right? You get tired. And the same thing with learning Torah, doing the commandments. The body, I want to eat something, no, I want to. So if so, you have to make the main thing is the goal, and the secondary thing is the body. But often, Shakala Gashvis, that all the physical world can become a vessel and a garment, like sort of a chariot, a vehicle. That the physical becomes a vessel to reveal the spiritual. You see that the world is just a creation, kolomar, in other words, that even though that the life of a tzaddik is not physical, but it is spiritual, but the completion, the wholesomeness of his service is when this spiritual devotion that he has permeates and shines even in the physical world, right? Like the Holy Temple. Right? The main thing of Judaism is God, but nevertheless, the Holy Temple was a place that it's expressed, it revealed what God really is. Ad shechayav basarim, till the physical life becomes, his physical life just becomes a vessel, and even more. It becomes not just a vessel to spirituality, but it becomes one continuum from the spirituality. It comes flowing into his life. They become united totally. But often in such a way, they become one thing with the person, a tzaddik. Not like you have music, you have a violin, right? You have a violin. You ever hear someone try to play a violin? He doesn't know how it's terrible, right? And then he wants to pray, so he practices. So the violin prevents him from really expressing the beauty that's inside. It makes all sorts of squeaks and squawks and things like that. Right? Better just turn on a record and listen to that. He says, no, if you know how to play the violin and you can really play it beautifully, then beautiful music comes through the violin. And even more, the violin itself becomes beautiful. You're glad the person has the violin. It becomes an extension of the music, not just a means to reveal the music. That his completion spiritual becomes expressed in physical, b'chayim basarim, but often in such a way that physical life has she'en shum davar mutar gam lo chaser davar. There's nothing extra or nothing missing from his physical life, not more, not less, and not more. L'gabi yeshlemus in regard to his spiritual life, physical, fleshy life that he has, including even the physical dates that he was born, they become one just continuum, and they become even more an extension of his spiritual life. But Adarab, even more. Davka, specifically, only by means of the physical can there be such a revelation like that of godliness. And therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu, it says that God sits and he fills the days of the tzadikim from day to day. Since to the completion of the service of a tzaddik, it permeates and it is revealed in completion only in the physical. It becomes connected to his spiritual service as his physical body becomes an extension of that. The whole definition of this world, physical world, is part of the physical world is time and place. And time is divided into days. The days of the month, the days of the year, like the rabbis say, when God decided to create a world, so he created the first days of each month and the first days of each year. But when God chose Jacob and his sons, the Jewish people, so he set for them a different Rosh Hashanah of Geula, but it was in time. Everything was in time. The time that God decided for creation of the world is Tishrei. The time that God decided for the revealing the essence of the Jewish people, that's in Nisan, going out of Egypt. So we see that that God set years, this is connected to God's world. When God made the world, he set a particular day, that this date was going to be the beginning of the world. Rosh Hashanah, God created man. When God decided on the Jewish people, so he picked a certain date. When God created the world, he picked a certain day for the world. Not like when God created, took the Jews out of Egypt. Then it says that he picked a first day, a Rosh Chodesh of the redemption. That's when he chose the Jewish people. The intention is, and the year, Milashon Shinui, Milashon Mishane, the Makifa Kolel Betocho et Kol Shinui Azman. When God created the world, the physical world, so he created, he did it in a certain day and in a certain year, a date. Look, and therefore, this is the completion of service of a tzaddik. When God chose when he would take the Jews out of Egypt, he just took 1 month, the month. But when God said he was going to create the world, so he picked a certain day and also a certain year. So we see that world is connected intrinsically with time. So if so, we see a tzaddik. If his years are also complete, that God, it says he even fills the years of the tzaddikim from day to day. So every day he used in a complete way by means of purifying and making it into a garment on that day, because every day is an opportunity. That's why it's so bad when a person dies, because his opportunities to fix himself up and to fix up the world have ended. But if a person utilizes all of his days completely, like it says by Abraham he did, and I'm sorry, I'm just can you do it like it says, if there is missing one day, there's missing one garment of the soul. The days of man are set. According to the garments that he has to make in this life. Also, this is the completion of a tzaddik. A tzaddik is not just spiritual, but also physical. Days, years, physical. And when they come out to be equal, then we see that it's a completion, a wholesomeness. The cycle has finished exactly. Nothing is lacking and nothing is added. His completion, and it expresses itself even in the days of his life. It's one continuum of his completion in spiritual also. Just like the tzaddikim are complete, also their days and years are complete. Just a little more. Each one we can see that since the language of the Gemara is that God sits and he counts the days and he fills the days of the tzaddikim from day to day. So Ein Omer, so it doesn't say any conditions of the tzaddikim. So we have to say that this completion by a tzaddik is in the spiritual things. Afilu etzel kazeh, even such a person that he dies on a different day than he was born. But his movement shall be now, according to what we said, that this completion is when it's expressed in physical. She nosefet, there is an additional completion, and even more, a revealed completion. And it has to be revealed when this is expressed. There's so many tzaddikim that they do finish what they have to do in the spiritual sense, but it's very unusual that it comes out also physically. And even more, the physical expresses a new level of wholesomeness. By these tzaddikim, that the day that they passed away is the same day that they were born. This is a whole new type of wholesomeness that's even more so than if they would just be spiritual. B'shleimut said this wholesomeness is revealed by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It says, there's one opinion that says that Nisan, all of them were born in Nisan and all of them passed away in Nisan. It doesn't say the date. By Moses, it says the same day that he was born, he passed away. Moses was born on the 7th day of Adar, and on the 7th day of Adar, he passed away. In addition to this, that Moses' days were filled, he had 120 years. It says that people only live 120, he lived 120 years old. Because they are shepherds of the Jewish people, and especially Moshe, that he was a faithful shepherd of all the Jewish people. This was expressed by them in the service of a tzaddik, not just spiritually, but also physically, because their whole essence of their service was to bring godliness into the physical world and show that the physical world is nothing separate from God. Similarly, Dvar also by the second Rebbe of Chabad, Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's the Moshe Rabbeinu of our generation. Now, it has to be added on that all the Rebbes of Chabad, they did not pass away on the same day they were born. The only one that did was the second Rebbe of Chabad. So the Rebbe is not in any way saying that something is lacking if the person does not pass away on the same day that he was born. And of course, we have to add on that, it would be better if nobody passed away at all. But until Moshiach comes in, there's the raising of the dead, what can we do? That's the way it is. So instead of one person, any person be able to complete everything, yes, it does. So God made it that each person adds a very essential, piece of the puzzle to finish. But nevertheless, the fact that the second Rebbe of Chabad did pass away on the same day he was born shows that it is possible to have completion, total wholesomeness in this physical world, as we're going to explain later on. Now let's do the Yom Yom. One difference between the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid of Mezrich. These are sayings from the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe that were compiled by the Rebbe. So one difference between the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, the Baal Shem Tov made all sorts of journeys, traveled around. And the Maggid of Mezrich, that was his successor, Rabbi Dvar, he stayed home. And all the people, great geniuses and Talmud scholars, they came to him. But when the Maggid was the Rebbe, his Chassidut was already known, even for distant places. The Baal Shem Tov advertised these ideas of Chassidut all over, namely that every Jew is holy, and even the biggest sinners in the essence of the soul, they're holy, and even the holiest of Jews have to do tshuva, they have to change themselves and come closer to God. That every time a Jew does a commandment, it links God with the world. And all these ideas about Chassidut were already spread around because of the extensive journeys of the Holy Society. The Holy Society were those that were associated with the Baal Shem Tov. Many average laymen, simple people, had become devoted to Chassidut Chabad, and they used to make pilgrimages to Mezrich. So in other words, everybody knew there was such a thing as Chassidut, and everyone knew that there was hope for the Jewish people, and everybody knew that Moshiach was definitely going to happen, and that Moshiach was definitely an option in the world. The world wasn't all there is. Exile wasn't all there was, or going to heaven, right? Heaven was. So it stressed this idea of Moshiach was going to come through our work and make God revealed in the whole entire world. Everybody will know. So people knew about it. They wanted to know more. They wanted to know how deep this was, deeper. Then they went to Mezrich to understand Chassidut. So the Baal Shem Tov spread the ideas around, and all the ideas, he, so to speak, was the one who planted the seeds, and the harvest came to Mezrich. The people came to Mezrich to learn more and to understand more. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, at 3:00, we'll have a class in Chumash. Shalom Uvracha.